Hello, welcome to Dynavistics and Cavallo's. Welcome to your future. Complete visibility and intuitive data insights. We're super excited to have Ken here. Ken, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Pamela. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. So why don't we kick it over to you without any further ado and tell us about your new product.
Sure, thanks for the opportunity to share this. So I'm going to jump into a bit of a description of the product here, and then we can take an exploration of it as well and show you some of the features and the plans for it as well. So just to lay out a rough agenda for what I intend to cover today and what we hope to achieve, just to let you know a bit about myself and who you're talking to and hearing from today, and then about the company and our purpose for Analytics Cloud and how we serve the industry. And then we're going to get into the actual product of the Analytics Cloud reporting suite and how that ties into the data that you are already working with, but then makes it really meaningful and insightful. So just a little about myself to kick off here. My name's Ken Gald. I'm the technical sales manager with Cavallo, and I've been here since our sales pad days as well, roughly about 5 years. I lead our pre-sales team, so we work a lot with our customers and prospects who are evaluating our products, hoping to help them see how they would fit into the organization and work. So definitely very knowledgeable about what our customers are trying to achieve, and then also how our solutions can fit into that. So hopefully I'll be able to show what how this would also work in your situations as well. My prior experience, I've been working with ERP and business systems roughly about 10, 12 years now, a couple multinational corporations in the distributor type space as well, consumer products and footwear, apparel products, with tier 1 ERPs, the SAPs and so on of the world. And in some of those kinds of organizations, there's whole business intelligence teams that focus on reporting and data and analytics, something that's not very realistic or attainable to many of the small and medium businesses until now with like our Analytics Cloud product. For those who aren't familiar with us, I hope you are. You might know us as SalesPad, but we're Cavallo now through a name change that was about a year ago. So if you're not familiar with us, we're approaching about 20 years old now, working with distributors, thousands of distributors and tens of thousands of users. And we really focus on making distributors more valuable by being able to gain efficiencies, increase margins, become more successful. We do that with a very high retention rate and high NPS score, reflecting a strong satisfaction and strong retention of our customers because of a lot of value that we bring. Now, to introduce a little bit about Analytics Cloud and what that intends to serve as, we built this as data science for distribution. So what that really might mean is then we deliver real-time analysis to guide optimization of distribution processes. And it's powered by machine learning, which you'll see in a way, we're going to take actual data, translate that into baselines, and then provide comparisons of how you are performing against those baselines. So it's accumulating more knowledge as time goes on as well for making stronger baselines, stronger representations of how you're performing against trends. So it's a snapshot of kind of the now versus those historical trends, using data for every order in your system to provide those benchmarks. So it's benchmarks of each process and how long each of those processes take, and then compares with current status to uncover where you could further refine your distribution operations, things you could be doing more efficiently. So we uncover those inefficiencies, the bloated processes, and perhaps areas that are losing profits, affecting your margins. So how it fits into our stack and the tech stack that you're working with, Analytics Cloud directly integrates into that, providing an instant look at the company's operations with direct comparison to the averages. So using the data, say, that you've got already in your ERP system as the foundational component there, that's where we start building upon that. So first you've got, say, the ERP, that brings you a lot of the accounting type functionality, the baseline business needs are covered there. But then we build onto that in this kind of stack here with the intelligence component at the top. That would be our analytics cloud part. So as you can see there, actionable insights in real time. That's looking down through all of the data and all of the transactions that are occurring in those other components, and then surfacing that, making it actionable. Now I like this one. It's going off brand on this one a little bit, but I really like this image. Now I can't take credit for this one. I've seen this on LinkedIn and it looks like it's been shared a lot. But the concept I think is really spot on for our objective with Analytics Cloud. So the data is all in there in your company already. You have piles of data, you have piles of bricks there. That's not the challenge. But it's not easily accessible or usable in that current state. So if you had to take that and build reporting around that from scratch, that would be a really big task. But as soon as the data is exported into another reporting system as well, it becomes out of date. It's no longer real-time data either. So Analytics Cloud has been created in this way that we can take all that data and input from our data science team, so that it constructs that story around that data in real time and makes it contextual and relevant and consumable and meaningful to you. So we kind of put that story to it so that you're able to make sense out of it. So the raw data becomes usable into actual consumable insights. So the benefit of using Analytics Cloud as well, it's ready built. So from the time of install to receiving these insights, to being able to kind of construct that story around it, it's measured in hours, not months. Really the data, as soon as you install Analytics Cloud into your GP environment or into your BC environment, it starts calculating those baselines and developing those trends. It's then plotted into the Analytics Cloud visualizations in that interface. So the time to value is practically same day for being able to start taking that data and having that story. So just to kind of run through an example what that might really look like or what that really means. If you say like order comes in 9 a.m. Monday, all right, enters the system, it ships afternoon on Tuesday, invoiced Wednesday morning, total processing time for that order, say roughly about 50 hours. Is that good or bad? It's relative to your own historical performance, historical trends. So maybe now for your company at this time of year, the volume, that's 50 hours, that's great. Maybe that's a good number for you. Well, we wouldn't necessarily know that, but as you develop that and see those trends, at other times it might not be a good number. Maybe that's much slower than you would like to operate. So this benchmarking of your current state versus the trends crafts that story that makes it meaningful. Like, is it good or bad? Now you can actually answer that question. And it shows that perhaps processing time is on track, or it needs attention, or it's delayed based on your own median processing time. And just a little insight as to kind of where it's going as well. We can hit on some of the roadmap of it, but you'll see I kind of mentioned as well, it fits into the sales plan environment, kind of on that bottom row. And then the rightmost column is the intelligence tool set, the Analytics Cloud tool set. So currently it's really focused on that process performance type aspects, but you'll also see there's some additional plans to bring other analytics around sales and profit, many other areas, and we can kind of touch on a bit more of a deeper dive into that as well. At the moment though, I'm going to transition into actually showing you the product, showing you Analytics Cloud and how we bring that data up and what that really looks like. So with that, I'm going to do a switch on the screen share to bring open an example of what this is really going to look like. So as I make a transition there, I'm going to get it to where hopefully you can be able to see that as well. And resume that share. There's always so much to kind of click through to get this going as well. All right. And you will notice, like, well, I'm going to be working in a staged prototype environment. I'll call that out just first of all. I don't want to expose any other company's proprietary data, don't want to have access to that kind of thing. So I'm working with something that's kind of, it's a little bit more static, but it's a representation of how this really looks when you get data flowing in. Now your data, of course, would be different. It's going to calculate different numbers based on how your margins are and the volume and throughput of orders that are going in. But generally, this is going to be what it looks like as you get into it. So typically, you would access Analytics Cloud simply by going to ac.cavallo.com and logging in. And it, being browser-based, cloud-based, it means you can take this data and access it anywhere. So if you needed to remotely look into, well, how are things being processed, really from like maybe that a business owner, business manager type perspective, you can get into that and see easily a quick visualization and a dashboard like this. What's my status in these real easy to consume visual cues of the kind of the green, yellow, red as a status. Now I'll define a bit more what those really look like as well. But really it's the kind of the clarity of the vision is what's meant to be presented in this screen. With this, it's historical data. It's nothing new really, but analytics combines that historical data with the real-time averages to answer questions like, again, how many orders have we processed today compared to a normal day? And are the orders getting stuck or are we on track? So if you're familiar with our sales monitor in SalesPad, that's really like that, but kind of on steroids. So it's not just rows of data, but really now you can visualize it with real-time updates to it as well. So what you can really see in here on this, the real-time dashboard that I'm operating in at the moment, you can see open documents that you've got flowing through the system, 133 of them, in fact. And they're broken out into whether they're on track, need attention, delayed, or other outliers as well. What this is really presenting is that based on the median time that an order usually spends in any of these queues, is it spending more or the similar amount of time to normal? Those that are delayed are spending considerably more time in those queues, indicating that there's a bottleneck perhaps happening at that point. Now you can drill into each of those queues. We'll take a deeper dive into one of those in a moment. Before transitioning out of here, you can also see on the right-hand side some quick KPIs that are also measured in this view. Today's shipped orders versus normal. Well, you shipped more than you did yesterday, or that you typically ship. In this example, quick visual cue, green, yep, we've shipped more than before. Again, whether it's an efficiency gain or efficiency, if things are moving through efficiently. So these different KPIs, you kind of get an idea of the margin and like where it stands at a real quick glance. It's also plotted against a trend of, say, like the previous 12 months for orders created and shipped, plotted against those charts. So again, you can kind of monitor like, hey, for this point in the day, are we on track for where we normally are? Now, if you needed to drill in a little bit further into any one of these particular queues, say, for instance, I want to go look in my procurement queue, you can jump through and then actually get into a queue of that here as well. So I'm looking now at my procurement queue. In this, you can see another visualization of the dots plotted into this grid. Now, I didn't define that earlier, but what's happening in this view is the size of the dot relates to the order value. So the bigger the dot, the bigger the value. And on the x-axis is the time span. So you'll see a couple clusters, like here's some orders that are over 12 hours, 12 to say about maybe 16, 18 hours. You can see that cluster. There's a few things that are, frankly, they're taking longer than normal, and those might be things that you should be concerned about. So in that type of view, you can get a real crystal clear picture of your processes and following the path they take through the system, and then get into the detail level to identify current bottlenecks or see disruptions that are occurring. So in this example, I might focus in my attention, especially on, say, some of these bigger red icons on here. There's also data that's presented in the list view at the bottom. So in this one, I've sorted time in queue, the highest number at first. These are the things that are moving the slowest. And then you can see the details of what those orders are and then click through to open them actually up into SalesPad. So in this, you can kind of see the procurement queue, the activity, the throughput that's going through there in the linear flow of how this order typically progresses through. The procurement queue for me has a longer bar in this as well, also indicating to me that this is typically a queue that takes a longer portion of the full order to cash cycle. So I usually expect things to be in here a little longer, but you may even note that, well, things are slower than they even typically would be at this point. And you could jump between the different queues to see what the timing is between those other ones as well, as it moves through the process. There's a lot of filtering capability to add around this as well. If you need to filter, if you want to see certain customer order types, order class, you can filter so you can really hone in on the types of data that you would want to see in this view as well. Now jumping to kind of back to the another area that's in here as well. I'm jumping to the trend monitor. This is a newer feature that we're getting rolled out as well. The trend monitor is going to be a really great value added piece here, in that we can take those trends and present all these different KPIs against different time periods for, again, a very quick visualization of how things are performing against the trend. In this example, the KPIs listed down the left give some of the main important things that distributors might care about. So we created these kind of ready-made to be able to pop them in here. So we're seeing, say, like placed orders or order value and so on. With this is able to be seen across 4 different categories of time as well: weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. So really you can plot this against that to see how things are trending over time. Maybe you're having a better quarter, but down for the year. You'd get a real quick visualization of that there'd be red in the year perhaps, whereas the quarter might be running green. It's all presented with the data that you can also then click into to get some more of that underlying data. Really the strong suit of this is really being able to drill down into it as well, and then see like what is making that, so you can identify the problem areas and perhaps address them as well. When it comes to the machine learning AI type capabilities of this as well, the insights that are presented at the top level here, these are going to be some of the things that are probably most important to you based on your own data. So these will change depending on the current situations. So order shipped, well, it's really up by a huge percentage. So we bring that to the surface because that's probably something you'd want to know about. If there are other more important metrics, those would be presented up there as well, kind of dynamically changing to present to you the things that are most important. So with that, I'm then going to jump into another area that's kind of an extension of being able to see all of these things and whether they're moving correctly through the system. You might also want to know, get proactively notified about them as well. Within Analytics Cloud, we've got an alerting functionality that you can define specific conditions in which you'd want to receive alerts. So anytime that those conditions are met, anytime that something might be moving slower than expected, or a large order from a new customer, you can create those conditional alerts and then be notified of when that occurs by email. That could be used so that you can also dial in your processes and handle situations in real time, being proactively notified about them before they progress into an even bigger issue. So it's kind of the smoke alarm, or the canary in the coal mine, to tell you that, well, if things aren't working properly, you'll know about that before they really become a big issue. What that looks like in here, jumping back to into the alerts setup area, I'm going to take a kind of different tack on that one to bring up an example of what the alerting piece looks like. I want to switch over to an example of what this is going to look like to set up an actual alert now. All right, at this point, you should see an environment where there's different alerts that can be configured at the order level or the queue level. And I've got quite a few here queued up for order alerts. The example of this is that you can create conditions around this, like a low margin order is being moved through. And I'll kind of do one on the fly as well, where like slow or low margin. In this example, you can give a note like new order with margin below a certain criteria. We'll call it 10%, and then where you'd like to have that sent. in a dummy email address. Now you can create these conditions that you'd like to be notified when these are met. So something like the order margin is less than 10%. You can then save that, and now when anything occurs that triggers that, you'll be notified that, well, there's a new order in there that needs to be reviewed. You can add additional conditions. They become stacked on here as well. So maybe you only care about a low margin on an order of a certain size. So if you have free sample orders that you do all the time, well, they're under $100 and you expect them to have a low margin. So you wouldn't want to know about all those every time. So you might say that, well, when the order total is greater than $100 and it's below 10% margin, those are the ones that you really care about. And you can save that, and then that becomes a real-time monitoring that you no longer have to actually take in the system and do yourself. The system will notify you when that occurs. You don't have to spend time coming in here and kind of doing a manual order review, whether through Sales Monitor or any other area to catch these. It's just set on cruise control at this point so that if it arises, you'll know about it, but you don't have to think about it up until the notification comes in to actually indicate that there's been something like that there. The queue alerts also can work similarly. You can note, like, well, if there's a queue that has a particularly high number of documents in it, or if they're moving particularly slow against their median processing time, you can also be called out that, well, it's not a specific order, but generally things in picking are moving slower than they typically would. You can build that out around here as well, like slow to pick orders. Picking has more than 20 orders queued up for it. And you could define it by a document type and say, like, well, it's ready to, in this example, I don't have the picking queue, but say waiting to receive, we'll just drop it into there. If the order count is greater than, or order total document count is greater than 20 orders, and we could save that as the condition to now know anytime that the warehouse is being inundated with more than 20 orders, that you will be notified, and you can use that as a trigger to reallocate perhaps some people from, say, shipping to help pick orders. So that becomes the queue and the order alerts as the proactive monitoring system for the distribution operation, so that you don't have to necessarily babysit this. You'll know that things are going to be moving through, and you'll hear about them if they are not.
Hey, Ken.
It's really a great tool to kind of monitor the waste. Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that in the old days, what you'd have to do is figure out what report you'd want, go to somebody who could develop it for you, have it developed, right? And then somehow figure out how to get it to your email. Did I just watch you in about 10 seconds basically develop a report and have the important people or the people that it pertains to immediately get notified?
Yeah, and that was what you saw there. Yeah, if you have things that you want to know about, you don't have to necessarily go and create that report, have it run over SQL, use some external tool, manage that to go to your email. It's pre-built with these very like plain English type of criteria or conditions in here. There's not really any kind of coding syntax issues that you'd have to worry about. It's like, well, if something is greater than 20 hours in a queue or 20 documents in a queue, something like that. It's very plain English, plain language kind of configuration of this. It's meant to be that easy to build one of these.
Now you made it look really easy and really fast, but I don't want to bypass this. The power of this is absolutely amazing. And the simplicity of it makes it so that, say, an ops manager, a sales manager, a warehouse manager, or whomever needs to, can really set it, forget it, and they know when to worry because they get an alert. That this is really amazing.
Yeah, and to that point, you kind of mentioned different user groups or roles that might care about this as well. You can define it in such a way that perhaps, well, if there's a certain number of orders in the queue that's getting a little bit higher than normal, well, okay, maybe that's something that goes to the warehouse manager or sales manager. Well, if it even exceeds that threshold and that there's an even bigger issue going on, you might escalate that. So instead of now there's 20 orders in the picking queue, okay, well, that can be responded to. But if it climbs even higher and say you hit 30 orders in that queue, maybe that's a bigger issue that you want to notify someone else about. So you can build these alerts to kind of escalate in that same kind of path as well, kind of raising the alarm. So that you can start reacting to those things before you start missing your commitments to your customers, not being able to get orders out in time, for instance.
It's wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for going through that. This is really powerful.
Yeah, and I'll show a kind of a quick little tangent around that as well. The example I brought up here that I wanted to show is another view of some of the KPI and the metrics that are able to be built in here as well. So I jumped into this analytics area. This is a little forward looking into some of the features that are coming. You can build these additional reports kind of on the fly, defining your data sets in here as well. So again, we're looking at all that transactional data, a lot of the orders and invoices and so on. You can build things like monthly sales, where you can plot them out in line or bar type charts. So the ability to create these reports on the fly, it's very much like creating those alerts where it's not code-based report building. You can define them using standard pieces of data that we pull through, really those main distributor-centric types of metrics. So we've got reports in here like, well, monthly sales with the details then down below and the chart above. You can expand that out or also take this as an export, or you can build other reports. So here's shipped orders, dollar shipped per hour. Adding those in, adding sections to these reports and creating these is something we're going to be adding in here very soon as well. And it really empowers it to kind of go to another level, not just of the kind of the alerts or the standard ones, but also creating your own as you'd need.